Are you worried about how to start with GAPS intro stage 1 and practically scared about how to go through with your autistic kid and later how and when to move on to other stages? Even confused whether your kid needs to follow GAPS introduction stages or they can start from full GAPS? I would try to break down the stages and explain as much as possible in my coming series of GAPS introduction stages. Just stay connected and stick to the end of today's topic. I guess it would solve your confusion or concerns, and you would definitely get a clarity about how to proceed and what to expect. Hello, lovely parents. This is your dietitian and CGP Pooja, and welcome back to my corner of the healing world. Today, I would like to talk about the GAPS introduction step 1. So, let's dig in and take a deep look at it. So, on the GAPS introduction diet, we are accomplishing the restoration of the gut by healing the gut lining and sealing up the leaky gut and rebuilding that core inner structure of intestine. That is the inside of our intestines, of course. Stage 1 of the GAPS introduction diet provides lots and lots of very specific nutrients that help the body accomplish this restoration process of our gut. In one of my previous videos where I talked about how the GAPS diet works and what's happening in our gut when we need the healing from the GAPS diet, in which conditions, and especially for those autistic kids, I will share the link somewhere here. Please go and check that if you haven't already. There he talked about those tiny intestinal cells called enterocytes. And if you remember, those are constantly being born in the intestine, get mature, they climb up to the top of the villi, and then they get older and get shed off. A new fresh cell takes place. Thus, the constant cycle continues. This stage 1 of the introduction diet helps that process happen and provides all the nutrients for the new cell to be born. So the renewal gets continued. So we are going to notice when we talk about the specific foods that we eat in stage 1 of the GAPS introduction diet, we are really trying to eliminate fiber and other hard stuffs to digest things as much as possible. We want really easy to digest nutrients and things that are going to be soothing on our kids' digestive system. Oftentimes, when the autistic kids have gut problems, there's places of inflammation in their gut, and these nutrients help to soothe that inflammation and heal it. Stage 1 of the GAPS introduction diet also starts right away with introducing friendly, healthy bacteria and different probiotic foods. This is because one of the main things that's happening in GAPS intro stage 1 is rebuilding that balance of healthy bacteria too, so that the food can actually be digested, metabolized, and absorbed properly. If the foods are not digested properly, the food particles turn into toxins, get to mix directly in the main bloodstream, and that leads into various food intolerances and food allergies. Once our kid's body is actually able to break down food and digest it properly and process the rest of it properly, a lot, if not all, of the food allergies and intolerances will actually be eliminated. So that's really a great news. GAPS introduction stages are very useful in general, especially for autistic kids to start with. Though some of the autistic kids may not get benefited from starting their GAPS journey with GAPS introduction diet stages due to some certain underlying health issues and symptoms. They need to start with full GAPS diet and then they need to follow introduction stages. Only the GAPS practitioner can suggest you after the first consultation assessment which stage should your kid start with or would get most benefit out of it. If you do these things in the correct order as suggested by your GAPS practitioner, the kid will heal more deeply and quickly. Otherwise, it may take more time than usual to heal the body as the right issues are not getting targeted. For example, if you jump right into the full gaps diet with your kids on your own and your kid has a lot of underlying health issues to address, oftentimes you won't really be able to address those properly and they'll have lingering issues for a long time. So it's best to go ahead and go through the introduction diet before the full gaps diet if your gaps practitioner did suggest that. The time spent on each stages of the GAPS introduction diet is very individual. It really depends on what you are trying to heal, your kid's specific situation. So basically, as you are moving through the GAPS introduction diet steps, if you add in a new food to your kid's diet and their symptoms return or persists, that means that not enough healing has taken place and he or she is not yet ready to add that food back in. So you need to take it back out, wait a couple of weeks and then try it again. And we'll talk more about that in future videos about when and how to move on to the next stage and how do you know when your kid need to stay in one stage longer and all the other stuffs. One really interesting thing to keep in mind is if your kid gets sick with a flu like a stomach bug or even food poisoning or something like that, some kind of digestive upset, it can be really helpful and beneficial to go back to the GAPS introduction diet for a few days. And that will help your kid's gut heal from that. So when we have a leaky gut, it means we have a damaged intestinal wall as well as abnormal gut flora, as I already said. So what happens when we have this leaky gut is that our food isn't digested properly and then the food particles that are not broken down properly can go through this leaky gut wall into the bloodstream. In not the right way, and that's when we have food allergies and food intolerances. The immune system reacts to these things once they are into the bloodstream in this improper way, and this is why if your kids go to be tested for food allergies and food sensitivities and food intolerances and things like that, it can be pretty unreliable. If they have a damaged gut and a leaky gut, when they are tested for these food allergies and things, they are probably going to show up as reacting to whatever they ate recently. And if they were to go get tested again on different days, different foods would probably show up. And that's just because with that leaky gut, whatever they're eating is being improperly digested and being processed and being allowed into the bloodstream not properly digested, and then their immune system is reacting to it. So rather than trying to figure out what they are sensitive to and then just trying to avoid that food and live like that, it's so much better to just heal their gut and then heal those food intolerances and sensitivities for foods, and then they will be able to eat and digest foods properly and not worry about it anymore. I will also mention that if you suspect that your kid have a real allergy, like an anaphylactic type of a reaction to a food, to do the sensitivity test before introducing that type of food as you go through the GAPS introduction diet. The way that you do that is you put a drop of the food. If it's a solid food, you will mix it with some water to make it into a liquid form of food. You put it on the inside of your kid's wrist. You can cover it up with a band-aid or something to keep it there. You put that before they go to the bed at night, and in the morning you look at that particular spot on their wrist, and if there is an angry red reaction, then that means that's something that you should definitely not introduce right now. Wait a long time. Do the skin sensitivity test again for the same food again later on way down to the road, and then see if it's safe to introduce it then. But for now, don't do it. And if there is no reaction at all for right now, then it's safe to go ahead and try it. All right, give it a go. So let's talk about the actual foods that they are going to be eating on the GAPS introduction diet. So the very most important thing, like I said before, is foods full of those nutrients, those building blocks that the body uses to rebuild the gut, to heal the leaky gut and to make that lining good again. And the foods that contain those nutrients the most are going to be your meat stock and the different bits of meat of those meaty bones and the gelatin in the meat stock. Those things are absolutely crucial to the GAPS introduction diet. You do not want to skip any of those for your kid or not let them eat enough of them. You want to make sure they're getting plenty of those kind of foods. And if you want a vegetarian version of that, that is also possible, but in that case you need to consult your GAPS practitioner. So in general, on the GAPS introduction diet, they may start each day with a glass of water. Don't give them to drink ice water first thing in the morning, because that's kind of shock to their digestive system. And then give their probiotics if they are having any. At that time, next, what will be making up a lot of your meals, as well as what they will have in between meals, is meat stock. We'll make soups with those meat stocks with different vegetables and meats, and you can also let them drink cups of meat stock in between meals as well. The basic idea is to get as much as of the meat stock into their body as you can, especially in these very first stages. Remember that meat stock is the building blocks for cell growth in the gut. It soothes inflammation, and in order for it to be able to do all these things, it needs to be homemade. Don't try to use store-bought broth or stocks or things like that, bouillon cubes or anything like that. That's not going to accomplish the same thing at all. This needs to be homemade meat stock. I have a recipe in my free ebook that shows you how to make meat stock. It's pretty easy. Once you get used to it, you will be able to make it very easily and quickly. It keeps in the refrigerator for around a week, and then you can freeze only the watery stock for longer term storage, so you can always have some on hand. It's also important to eat bone marrow, and you will get that from the inside of the meaty stock bones. And I'll be doing different soup recipe related videos that shows you how to make most of them out of the stocks as the other thing that you are going to be eating again. Made with that meat stock is soups, of course, different soups recipes. So you will use lots of different vegetables that are allowed on the GAPS diet. Right now, you will be doing lots of onion, garlic, celery, carrots, winter squashes, things like that. You remove the skin and seeds and anything that looks fibrous, because again you want everything to be nice and easy to digest, so that your kids gut can absorb those nutrients very easily and not to be irritated or anything with fiber. The other thing that's important to introduce right away on this first stage of the introduction diet is the probiotic foods. The first thing that's best to start with is the liquid from homemade sauerkraut. It's important to start with that juice from your homemade sauerkraut, and the reason why you start with the liquid and not the actual sauerkraut itself, it's because the liquid is again easy to digest. It's right there. The solid sauerkraut will be a little bit fibrous in the beginning, so we'll add that again in, but start with just the liquid for now. When you add the probiotic foods, it's important to start very slowly. You don't want to have a strong diet reaction, because once those probiotic foods start going into your kid's gut, healing is going to start taking place. The bad bacteria are going to start dying off, and they can feel really yucky if you do this too quickly. So start with a small amount and gradually build up. Dr. Natasha recommends starting with half or 1 teaspoon of the sauerkraut liquid for the first few days, and then gradually building up every few days. Your goal is to be adding about a tablespoon or so of probiotic food to every bowl of their soups and every cup of their stocks that they drink. After they're doing well with the sauerkraut liquid, you can go ahead and add the fermented dairy, and you want to go slowly with this. Do the skin sensitivity test like I talked about first, to make sure that there's not going to be a reaction, and then depending on your kid's symptoms, you are going to want to go one or two different directions. In fermented dairies, it could be either yogurt, like the homemade yogurt. If your kid is dealing with diarrhea, it's better to provide them with homemade yogurt, and that's what you will want to start with. If constipation is your issue, then you are going to want to start with the plenty of liquid from the homemade sauerkraut for a while. That will be more beneficial to you at first, and then the fermented dairy. will probably agree with you the most. And now the difference between yogurt and kefir on the GAPS diet is that yogurt is a lot more mild and kefir is a lot more aggressive. When you do the sour cream, you'll actually want to do it with the homemade yogurt culture first, and then once you are doing well with that, you can gradually change over to your sour cream made with kefir grains. So again, just to recap, that if you are dealing with the diarrhea, the homemade yogurt is going to help you. If you are dealing with constipation, then the liquid from the fermented vegetables and high fat dairy like the homemade raw milk sour cream is going to do the best. The last thing that you are going to be enjoying in this stage one of this GAPS introduction diet is the herbal teas. Mostly ginger and mint leaf or lemon balm are best for healing the gut at this stage. When you are adding the probiotic foods to your kids' meat stock or soup, you are going to want to make sure that the food is not too hot before you add the probiotic juices like the food, that's so that the heat doesn't kill the beneficial bacteria. Okay, and don't feel like your kids diet have to be limited when they are just eating meat stock and soup. Remember that there are so many different variations ways that you can make soup that still fits within the GAPS introduction diet. I'm going to be making a bunch more videos on variations of different soup recipes that you can have on stage one of the introduction diet. So there's a lot of variety that you can have for your kids and enjoy, and you don't have to feel limited. Okay, I hope that you found that interesting and helpful. I also wanted to mention that I have a free ebook. It's a GAPS diet essential basic recipe ebook. It's a free ebook that you can download that has the basic recipes that you will need to know to do the GAPS introduction diet. There will be link below where you can grab that. All right, if you found this video helpful and you liked it already, please give it a thumbs up. Share it with your friends or anybody else you think you might find it helpful. If you're new to my channel, please hit the subscribe button. I make new videos every week on how beneficial the GAPS diet could be for autistic kids. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.